Hey guys, it's Coach Matt with Lifelong Recovery. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the importance of practicing humility in recovery. So this is piggybacking off of my last video, which talked about how the ego can really become distorted after prolonged substance use. So if I've been using substances for a long period of time and pretty frequently, and then I decide that I'm going to quit, what's probably going to need to happen is my level of humility is going to need to be reset. So what that kind of means is, I was talking about in my last video, the longer that I'm using substances, the more my brain likes using substances, the more I want to continue using substances, and the more my brain is going to give me reasons to continue using substances. So, this subconscious process of the brain influencing my thoughts in order to get me to continue to use substances. And this is this very cyclical, this vicious cycle process, because not only do I like using the substances, but my brain is so enamored with it that it really conjures up ideas and thoughts and distortions of reality in order to continue that usage. So, I talked about in the previous video with self pity. So, self pity is this almost like overindulgence in my own problems, right? And so there's a lot of self pity that happens with continued substance use, is wallowing in my own problems, view of the world, this pessimistic view of the world, and the really focusing on that pessimism and that negativity in order to give me an excuse to continue using. So, what really needs to happen with this reset of humility is I really need to kind of alter the way that I view myself in terms of the world. So there's a saying that an addict wants what he wants when he wants it. You may have heard me say this before, but it's in my experience working with people in recovery and my own experience in addiction, this is really true. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because every time I use, I basically am giving my brain instantaneous results. So I'm conditioning my brain for this instant gratification. So the real world obviously is not like that, right? My problems aren't going to be solved immediately. I'm not going to feel better immediately. So I'm going to get aggravated, maybe agitated. I'll probably be irritable and depressed because basically I'm not feeling that relief that the substance provide once I start to get clean and sober. So again, like I talked about in the last video, with the ego, it gets distorted in both directions. So this self-loathing, the self-pity, the feeling of inferiority, things like this, that, and then also this blame. You called it the shame and blame. So I'm either sitting in this place of feeling shame, feeling unworthy, feeling like a fuck up, not good enough, or I'm sitting in this place of thinking that the world is fucked up, kind of against me, maybe even God hates me, kind of thing. Or if other people would just do what I want them to do, if other people just did this, then I would be okay, right? So I really need to come back to this balance. So what I always told people when I was working in treatment, when I did groups in treatment, was that for me, it was I was in my addiction. I conditioned myself to either I was either a piece of shit or I was the shit. And there was really no in between. It was either the worst person in the world, I had no value, I might as well kill myself, or I was better than everybody else. I was hot shit, basically. So both of those are distortions of the ego. And what I need to do is come back to this place of humility, what they call being right size. So knowing my place in the world, knowing that I'm no better or no worse than anybody else, and I'm just one person among billions, right? So for in order to achieve this, I find myself being irritable, depressed, agitated, all these things. Maybe I fly off the handle too easily, things like that. Meditation, prayer, and breathing exercises, in my experience, are probably the best thing to help reset that level of humility and really calm the brain down to this place of peace. Because I really, when I first quit drinking and using, all I could think about was drinking and using more. I wanted, the cravings were so bad. I would fly off the handle. I was talking about every little problem seemed insurmountable. It's like everything in my head was like pushing me towards just giving up and drinking and using. And I didn't want to fucking do that. So meditation, prayer, breathing exercises really help to slow those brain waves down to get you back into a peaceful state. Another thing that I would tell people all the time, and when I was working in treatment, is you need to humble yourself before you get humbled. And what I mean by that is if my brain has been distorted by substance use, by frequent substance use, now I'm thinking differently. Again, my brain has been conditioned to give me reasons to drink or use, right? So basically I get pissed off easier at other people. I think things are unfair, typically more often. Again, I wallow in self pity. Not even necessarily that I'm looking for attention from other people again, but I'm just overconsumed by my own problems, right? So, what tends to happen, you worked with a lot of people who are trying to get sober and they'll maintain periods of sobriety, but they forget to practice that humility. So maybe their boss at work gives them a hard time or gives them shit about something. Maybe they get broken up with, just anything that kind of bruises their ego, and then they go back and drink or use a lot of times. So again, the humble yourself before you get humbled, because if I'm practicing humility, then I can take those things in stride. But if I'm not in this place of humility, then I'm going to revert back to that old thinking of like, oh, the world isn't fair. I'm not worth anything. I'm inferior. I'm not good enough. Things like that. And it's going to get me back in that place of drinking or using. So I really need to take a step back. You talk about acceptance all the time. This is huge with that. So take a step back, practice acceptance, look at myself, look at my part. If my boss gets on my ass, maybe my boss is just an asshole. Maybe I need to look for another job, but maybe in reality, I did do something that caused my boss to get on my ass, right? So I need to really look at myself and say, okay, what's my part? I need to look at this objectively. Was my boss being unfair to me, or did I actually do something that warranted these consequences? Guys, I'm going to continue this in the next video, so I'll make a part 2 about this. I appreciate it. Please stay tuned for part 2. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.